Next up is Jack Armitage. Jack, the stage is yours.
Hi everyone, thanks to Reykjavík Poetics for having me. I'm Jack. I've been living in Reykjavík for 3 years and I've performed at this venue a number of times, but as a musician, so this is a little bit different for me. I'm going to be reading a vignette from a writing project. It's kind of vaguely science fiction, I'm exploring writing it as a series of kind of very short vignettes, which fits this format very well. And overall, this world that I'm exploring is about hands. And the sort of code name for the project at the minute is Hands, a Tactile Novel. So this is HATN number 1, Sarah, and this is going to be published next month in Reykjavík, so thanks to those folks too. Sarah stared at her hands, and she wondered if they stared back, as she often did in the evenings. Were they hers, or was she theirs? She was aware of the absurdity of such dualistic thinking, but she increasingly found it hard to believe they were hers. At work, she would watch them perform for hours, without much intervention from her. She had become used to this, though. Many people had. What was unsettling was what they had started to do after work. From her cubicle, all the way down to the subway, they would subtly wriggle and reel away from contact, shying from elevator buttons, handrails, door frames, and then the phantom gestures, again subtle, yet definite spasms, imitating work, passing invisible things to each other, sending little messages, turning things over. Not over enough for others to notice, she hoped, but impossible for her to ignore. Once she had found a seat, preferably a quiet one, as far as that was possible, Sarah waited for the doors to close. As the two sides met and clasped, she felt an instant snap, short and sharp and electrical, and her hands, which by this point she was always holding together, wilted apart like a flower dying in time-lapse, falling onto each thigh as if readying to each receive a leaf of a book. Except they would not be able to. They were dead, or asleep, or otherwise inanimate and unresponsive. It was quietly terrifying. Sarah kept them balanced on her thighs, which was not easy to do as the carriages slinked and bumped along the aging tracks. It was at this time that she worried most about what would happen if they fell off her thighs. What would happen, she honestly didn't know. And worse, what if people saw? What if someone tried to help her and touched her hands? How would they react? When she reached her stop, they knew, but they didn't snap back to life. They crawled and rolled and wormed, and then flopped to her sides as she stood to navigate to the surface, trying not to need them as she went, noting their absence. And so they idled until she arrived home, where she now sat on her bed, staring at them as they, she felt, stared back. Her fingertips angled slightly upwards at her, not entirely still, but pulsating ever so gently. Maybe they were having thoughts independent of her, using some part of her brain that she no longer had access to, or perhaps never did. Maybe, she thought, in an attempt to gloss over her conviction that yes, they were thinking. And she feared that they were thinking, what do we do about her?